Hello, and welcome to First Geek 411's book club. It has been a minute, and we're so excited to be back. Um, eh. Before we get started, you can find us at all the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as One Geek 411. Come chat with us on our Discord server, shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com, and watch live on our Twitch every Monday night at 6:45 Mountain Time, and find all our videos over on YouTube. And don't forget to check out our sweet, sweet merch at our Redbubble store. I'm Shanine, and with me I have Emma.
I decided not to mess with you because I'm kind.
That is
And I would
nice.
feel bad if I messed with you.
On her first
because
week
I
back.
because I like you, Shanine, and I missed you.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too.
And Cameron.
Hello, hello. Welcome back. Happy to have you with us.
So excited. Tonight, we will be discussing A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers, which was one of my top reads of 2023. So I'm super excited to get to talk about it. When I opened the cover of this book and the dedication was for anybody who could use a break, I knew this was the book for me. And I'm so glad that I was right. So, in this novel, Chambers built an intriguing post factory world that is largely centered around its simple pantheon and finding balance with the natural world. Humans occupy half the continent in their cities, and the robots, set free from their factory purposes when developing consciousness, live in the wilds, and the groups have had no contact since the split. The main character, Dex, is a non binary T monk in their 30s. Despite their comfortable life, they feel directionless and have a nagging urge to escape it all. So
No
they
one
go
knows what
into
that's like.
Nope.
just just escape into the woods. So they go into the wilds seeking that mysterious something else that's missing. They meet the robot Mosscap, who has made contact with humans to answer the question, what do people need? They set off on an adventure to solve their questions and discover the true desires of their hearts. Quick lightning round, 3-word review.
Not what I expected, but in a good way.
It's so cozy.
New favorite book.
Yeah.
Nice, interesting.
I guess my 3-word summary would have been not a devotional.
Yeah. Not a song.
Not gonna lie.
Not like...
Not gonna lie, I went into it thinking it was a devotional because I didn't read the summary before ordering it. Not what I expected, but in a good way. Not that devotionals are bad, but
I can see how you would have made that mistake.
yeah.
All right. How does this book compare to other sci-fi and robot fiction that you have consumed?
It's like the polar opposite. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way this is what would happen in real life. And I mean that in all of the best ways possible. like the robots, I don't want to get cut too much into like other things for later, but they just leave and the humans just let them.
Yeah.
And people like respect their choice. And like, okay. like,
Sure.
yeah. This is like the most like, I wish this is the sci-fi that people would read that we could build things off of, not like Terminator style sci-fi, but
This is the future we should be working towards,
yes,
not away from.
Exactly.
If we're gonna dive into technology, we should be working towards whatever this book is, and not the other stuff. Whatever the other stuff is. As fun as it is to watch and read. this is the world we want to be living in right now and in the future, is whatever this world is, where you can literally go to a random stall in the marketplace, tell a person all of your woes or the things on your mind, and then get a cup of tea and sit down for a while and take a break from the world. Like, if we had that, so much would be so much better. And yeah, it is so different, and again, not what I expected, but in a good way. And I think, Cameron, you mentioned there's a book too.
There is a second one.
Like, I want to keep reading, because this is like, I didn't know I needed this kind of science fiction fantasy book until I read it, and I was like, this is what I need. Like, the world's not ending. There's not some huge war on the horizon. There's not some big bad guy on the horizon or whatever that we're trying to stop. It's just literally someone who's struggling with their place in the world and what that looks like. And then they meet a robot who's also kind of like, what is your place in the world? I would like to help you figure that out. And it's such a nice break from the rest of science fiction fantasy, where the world is always ending. Whereas the world's not ending. Like, it's not. It's just someone asking deep questions about their place in the world. And we all experience that. But in a setting of science fiction that's like fun. And I love that. It's so great. I enjoyed this book a lot.
Shanine, what'd you think?
I think, I mean, compared to even just the other like sci-fi and things that we have read for book club, like, I don't know, Dune and like Ready Player One and things are so much like a grander scale and like very high tech and things. And like there obviously is tech in this book, but it also, everything's just like small little farming towns, and they're like farming and doing their thing.
Mm-hmm.
Chillin'.
And then also they have like smartphones, but that's not important really.
That, I would like to note, is meant to last a lifetime.
It
Stated
must be nice.
specifically in the book. You get one at your 16th birthday, and like it lasts for your entire life, and that's amazing.
Most unrealistic part of the book.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I found it, I don't like, pastoral almost, like just very naturey and just, yeah, which is not what I expect from my sci-fi. I'm like, and the robots were so like, I don't know, casual about it.
They reminded me a lot of
They're-
Baymax from Big Hero 6.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, that was definitely the picture I had in my head from Mosscap. Of just like, hello there, human. Do you need help?
And then there's the random robot who's just sitting in a cave somewhere watching, you know, the stalactites grow. And it's like, yeah. Honestly, I would do that too if I could.
Yeah, it was nice not having like killer robots or robots that like could snap at any moment. They're just like, they're robots and they like
Watching ants.
worms and things. Well, I feel like we've kind of alluded to this in the midst of our gushings, but what are our thoughts on the cozy fantasy genre?
So cozy and so good. I literally, like, I ordered the book to read because I like having a hard copy, and then it ended up being so cozy that I also bought the audiobook so that I could listen to the audiobook drink tea and crochet all at once. Because I was like, this is too cozy for me to like not do other cozy things while reading this book. So I now have both the audiobook and the hard copy because why not? And it is not a genre I would expect to go well with science fiction, but I'm happy to be proven wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of reminds me almost as like an alternate version of like Star Trek, where like the hopes and dreams of Star Trek is that like we as a society have like moved past all of these struggles, and of course there's still conflict, but like we've moved past all of that, or as much like inner human conflict, um, or even like the Jetsons to like another degree of it's like it's such like nice futuristic, makes me want to go play like a farming sim, like play some more Fae Farm or something like that, and just have like this cozy time. Shanini used the word pastoral earlier, and it's just like we're just like having fun in nature, like like just enjoying the vibe. Like it's great. Drinking tea, which isn't for me, but like to each their own. I need an energy drink, monk, but like to each their own.
We call that black tea, Cameron, with milk and sugar.
I haven't read that much cozy fantasy. I'm definitely wanting to check out more. So I think the only other one that I can really think of is like Legends and Lattes, which is also just like super cute bakery vibes. And I think that's what the cozy genre is really all about, is like, are you having good food and warm beverages?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
While reading this book. On a rainy day, snuggled up in a blanket.
Mm-hmm.
On a window seat somewhere.
Yes, if at all possible.
If at all possible. If not the next best thing.
All right, what are your thoughts on the world of Panga that Chambers created?
10 out of 10 ideal worlds. I would love to live in a world like this. Kind of touched on it earlier. But if we could have tea monks in real life, I would be there often. To just like tell all my problems to someone who's just gonna listen and then go, here's a cup of tea. And my silly putty. Because I play with silly putty. Um, um, and it's just like, it's not the absence of technology. It's not like technology doesn't exist. But in this version of the world, we've found a way to live and use technology, but not like to the maximum. Like we've found a way to live with technology, but not have it overtake our lives in this world. And that's like the fact that someone out there, someone referring to the author, is dreaming of a world like this where we use technology to better our lives, but we don't let it take over our lives. It just seems like so delightful as a world. Like there is community that people haven't let go of. And it's both, it's mostly face to face or like, in person contact. But that technology helps support that and make that happen. And that just seems so great. And it's definitely a kind of world that I would want to live in and would like to work towards to some extent.
Yep, I'll echo a lot of that. It goes into a little bit more in the next book, but it's like imagine like living in a culture where it's just like acceptable for everyone to get a little counseling every once in a while. Like just go talk through your problems. We got Pebs instead of money, and it's okay if you're in the negative. It just means you might be going through something. Like, we're all there, like, supporting each other and looking out for each other and stuff like that. Um, it's such a fun world, and it's a world that's would be so nice to live in. I feel like we have like that view of like like stereotypical small town where everyone knows everybody and takes care of everybody. And this is like what if that was like actually true and people like were compassionate to be compassionate and like actually look out for people and like but that and that was just like how the culture as a whole was. It's like, oh man, must be nice.
Be nice. Must be nice. Must be nice to have Washington on your side.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think, yeah, just all of the communities are like small communities. And I don't know, they're nice and simple, and it's the world that Chambers created just seems very like simple and straightforward. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's nice in a fantasy as well. Is like there's not oodles and oodles of world building and like super complicated political structures and all these things. It's just it's a simple little cozy world.
Yeah. I think the other things that I was just thinking of, like in this world, like Dex was able at the beginning to say, "Hey, something about where I am in life isn't fulfilling to me. I would like to drop everything and go figure out what is fulfilling to me."
Mm-hmm.
And all of the people in their community were like, "Yeah, if you're not feeling fulfilled where you are, like it's not we're not going to be mad or angry or past you for wanting to go figure out what is fulfilling to you." And a lot of places in our world and a lot of people, unfortunately, aren't going to be that open minded when someone says, "Hey, I'm a grown adult. This place that I am in is not fulfilling to me, and I cannot, as such, help other people around me. I'm going to drop everything and try and, you know, figure out what is fulfilling to me while I'm still independent and don't have people relying on me." And that's something that really stood out to me as part of this world, was that a lot of the people in Dex's life were like, if you're not feeling fulfilled, figure out what is fulfilling to you. We're not going to keep you here. And that's amazing.
All right, I'm kind of changing this next question because there there obviously are side characters, but we don't have a lot of face time with any of them. The novel largely revolves around Dex and Mosscap and just the two of them. So what are your thoughts on our main characters?
For the answer to the previous question, I like Mosscap a lot. But I think it's such a fun dynamic between Dex and Mosscap of like, you know, one character is here to try and understand what humans need, which is a very broad question. And the other is literally like sitting there going, "That's why I'm here. I don't know what I need." I'm having a quarter life crisis or, whatever, because I don't actually understand why I am feeling the way I am. And it's kind of a fun journey for the two of them to walk through that together of one wanting them both wanting answers to the same question, but coming at it from completely different angles based on completely different life experiences, so to say, or so to speak. Um, and not really looking at these, questions from different perspectives until they, meet each other. And that's when, things sort of start to move forward for both of them in finding those answers.
Yep, I'll echo that again. I really like both of these characters. I feel like they have just enough character growth that like the story feels like earned, but also not so much that it's just like this crazy development that happens over a relatively short time of the book. Um, and I really like what Chambers did with Dex of like, hey, they have this issue with their life and the fulfillment that they're getting, and so they're going to go do this other thing. But it turns out that like you are more than what you do, and like just changing roles, like while that helps, like also doesn't solve Dex's problems, and they still have to deal with that and try to learn what it is that to go to Mosscap's question to learn what it is that they need. Um, and I really liked that. As someone who like has gone through a radical shift a couple times where like I've moved across the country and then back, uh, like I kind of liked that a lot of like sometimes the things that we like define as our identity don't have to be like the sole piece of our identity. uh, and yeah, so I really enjoyed that about like Dex's growth. They don't grow out of the problem, they just find a new way of approaching it. And so I thought that was very cool. And then for Mosscap, yeah, Mosscap is great. They're everything I want in like a robot best friend. And so in one of my D&D games, I just gave them a robot butler that I think I'm gonna
Nice.
model after Mosscap, and just
Love
have it
that.
be like this super inquisitive, like kind robot, and that's just gonna like be the vibe. And so
Fantastic. That's the way to do
Uh,
it.
yeah, I think Mosscap is just delightful. I I don't know. I love how they just take so much joy in everything, and they could sit there and watch bugs for days and be perfectly content
mm-hmm.
about it. And and yeah, just everything is new and exciting for them. Um I think kind of an interesting interaction between them is how they end up dealing with meal times.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that Dex doesn't feel right eating in front of this robot who can't eat until they're both sitting there with plates of food. And once Dex is finished, he asks Mosscap, "Hey, are you gonna eat that?" And Mosscap is like, "No, obviously." And he's like, "Oh, great,"
Yeah,
and then
I'll
can
eat it for you.
finish eating the food.
I love that they use
And
that as like a way to share. And
Yeah.
again, that's like the cozy part of this world. Is it's like I
Yeah.
like Dex can't not offer what they have to somebody else.
Yeah.
Like culturally. Like and that's it's like they have to share. And it's like, "Oh, are you done? Well, now we can go through this rigmarole that we know is silly, but now Dex can eat the
We
rest of
both
their
know
food."
it's silly.
Like, yes.
But
I love it so much.
I think also sort of to stem off that, one of my favorite interactions was at the end when Mosscap like turns the T Monk role back onto Dex of like, hey, you've been doing this for so long for other people. I'm gonna now be a T Monk for you because you clearly need it. Like, I'm gonna take this cultural thing of yours and do it to you so that you can take a moment for yourself. And it was just a very thoughtful thing after seeing how much little rituals like that meant to Dex. So, even though the tea on a technical standard wasn't good, it meant a lot to Dex. And it was the best cup of tea they'd had in a long time.
Yeah, I love how these two characters that really have no basis for relating to each other figure out how to coexist and understand each other and become friends,
Mhm.
obviously. Um, and to segue into our next question, I love that Dex, our main character, is not like the 17-year-old chosen one um, in, 90% of
Mhm.
fantasy. We have this older, mature main character who's 30 plus years old. And I don't think I had ever like had a problem with like all the heroes are young adults and like teenagers and whatever. Like you're just reading it for a fun story until I became 30 plus and was
Mhm.
reading this book. And I'm like, oh man, I feel so seen. Um,
Yep.
what are all your thoughts on an older main character?
So for me, it
It
reminded me a lot of Yakuza Like a Dragon. And the rest of the Yakuza series may do this, like on the video game side. Like a Dragon's the first one that I played, where the main protagonist and like their like JRPG party are like all in their 40s and 50s. Like the youngest person is like early 40s. It's like them trying to help their community as like actual adults, like that have had jobs and lives and careers. It's like there's no like random kid from a small town village that's just coming to save the day. And so I really like that. And and you can tell a lot from a piece of media by the age of their protagonist because that's typically their target audience. And it's like I like that we're having fantasy that is targeted at adults. And it gets into a lot of the like with this being a very like environmental and Wikipedia calls it Solarpunk, which is not something that I had heard of prior to literally the start of this podcast, where I went and looked it up on Wikipedia. And so I really like that, and I like that idea of like us in our age bracket, like we have this ability to vote to do things to try to help the world become better, and so I really like that we get to kind of experience that being the target audience for the first time in a bit for some.
absolutely. And I think to add on to that, one of the things I also appreciated it is that a lot of the problems Dex encounters or experiences or feels do not are not a result of them making dumb age related decisions, which is something we see a lot, especially in like science fiction and fantasy with younger protagonists or main characters where, you know, because they're teenagers, they don't necessarily have a lot of the, life experience to make, the smartest decisions in the world and are often like a bit arrogant or, cocky or whatever. But in this case, it's, someone 30 plus who has had some life experience and is encountering something in their life that a lot of people in that age
Mm-hmm.
bracket encounter. Kind of like what I mentioned earlier of like, you know, not feeling as fulfilled as I expected, or like questioning, is this life I'm leading really what's I want to do for the rest of my life? And as you were saying, Cameron, like they are in a position to vote and actually have all of these adult rights to make a difference in the world, um, in a way that younger generations don't, and whatever that time frame is. And it's a very refreshing take on like wanting to make a difference in the world and trying to make a difference in the world in a very grounded
Mm-hmm.
and real way, where the entire population isn't just 17-year-old people. Um, there are a lot of us in in the young adult to 30s age bracket that are also trying just as hard. Our life doesn't end when we turn 20 or 21. We're still very much able to make a difference in the world. And it's so nice to see that, you know, being represented so strongly in something like this.
All right, we touched on a few moments already. Are there any other standout moments or scenes that stuck out to you?
I really liked the back and forth when we first meet Mosscap and Dex, or Mosscap is like trying to take Dex's like water tank to the river to fill it up. And I really loved this like back and forth between Dex of like, no, I can't go off the trail. There's a quote that I grabbed for that is everyone thinks they're the exception to the rule, and that's exactly where the trouble starts. One person can do a lot of damage. Then like Mosscap kind of comes back with the inverse of that, and it's like the no, that's okay. We're not cutting a trail. We're not establishing a pattern. We're just being part of nature. And I really liked getting the kind of this like philosophical dichotomy between the two of them. That's like Dex isn't wrong. They like their point is extremely valid, and there's a lot of people that need to live that way. And then the inverse is also true. It's like we can't fully distance ourselves from nature um, and expect to like truly understand it. And I love that we get the robot that's like making that point. Like I loved that irony of like Mosscap being more in touch with nature and animals than a lot of the humans that we see. It comes up more in the next one as well, but like I really liked that. And so that moment is like one of like I think the defining moments for me in the book. And like then like the scene towards the end where they actually get to like the monastery is really cool. Kind of getting to see the what they expected versus what is there and those moments. So
Absolutely. I loved a lot of their interactions, because they were just so thoughtful throughout. I think one of the things that stands out to me still, um, is just sort of towards the beginning of their friendship that really sort of sets up the differences between them. And it's when there's the bug crawling all over Mosscap and eventually climbs into its head. And Dex is all freaked out about it. And Mousecap is just like, yeah, it's fine. Like, it's not gonna hurt me. But Dex is just like all grossed out by it because it's a bug. Um, and it was just this very short moment, but it was a very insightful bit into an establishing moment of, you know, how each of them view the world in comparison to the other. One is grossed out by bugs crawling all over them, and the other is just like, let it do its thing. It's a bug. Like, earlier that day, Dex had, slapped a bug that had landed on them. Um, and apologized to it for killing it. Um, whereas Mosscap was just letting this bug crawl all over it and end up inside its head somewhere. And it was right towards the beginning of the two of them journeying together, and it was a great way to sort of establish the the differences between them and how really they can even just help each other.
Was there anything that you disliked about the novel?
I want more.
It was too short. Um,
I want more. Give me more.
it makes sense that there's not like an antagonist in this book, but it does feel kind of weird that there's not an antagonist in this book. Like there's no one like pushing Dex or pushing the world to live differently. Like there's no uh like nowhere in Dex's like struggle are they like, "Oh, I'm going to go start a riot or do anything crazy." Like the antagonist is Dex's internal struggle, which I think is great and something that more books have. But it's kind of hard to like you don't have anybody to like root against when it's like the main character's personality flaws that are the problem, and so it's a little too real in that sense without the personification of an antagonist, and so but and that's like I don't know, that's less of a dislike and more of a this probably would have changed a whole lot of the book to have that, but I'm kind of that's like one of the only things that really stands out to me. And again, I don't necessarily think that's a problem.
Yeah. For me, I have no notes.
Did you reread Shanine for this?
No, I did not.
Okay, I was
Because
curious.
it was one of the last books that I read in December.
Oh, okay. I wasn't
So,
sure when you had read it last year. So,
yeah, I read it right around Christmas time.
oh, such a
So
good
I
Christmas
like
book.
just finished it. Yeah, it was nice reading by the beach.
I
It was good. Um,
will say it was the perfect length. I just want more. Great length for this book. I just am going to read more of this series, or book two. I'm assuming there's only a book two.
Correct.
That's my wild guess. But
yep, it's a duology. I started the second one over the weekend. Um, but anywho, all right. One of my favorite parts is towards the end. I think I can't remember if they're at the monastery yet or if they're just about to be at it. But Dex is talking about their first experience with a tea monk and um, just that he was having a particularly hard day, and his dad brought him to a monastery for some tea. And the dad said, "Now that you know the way here, you can come anytime." Um, and Dex says, "I learned from the monks that I didn't have to have an excuse to be there. It didn't have to be a bad day. I could just be a little tired or a little cranky or in a perfectly good mood. Didn't matter. That place was there for me whenever I wanted it." And that is probably where I started crying, and then I didn't really stop until the end of the book. Um, just because it spoke to me. Um, but how have you approached faith in the past, and how does it compare to how you approach it now?
I
Oh
think
man.
for me, one of the biggest things throughout my life has been consistency. Because if I'm not consistent with something, then it kind of fizzles, if you will, um, in terms of habits and things. But one thing I'm finding, more recently in my life that wasn't so much, with my faith growing up is really working to establish a community around and in my faith, um, and working to build and maintain those connections within my faith, especially as someone in film in Los Angeles, of all crazy wild places. Um, you really have to work a bit harder to have those faith driven connections and friendships in this kind of world that I live in. And having those both, in person and online with, people from my church has been super important for me recently. Um, and it's been such a huge part of, making my own community and my own faith like stronger, is getting to spend time with people within the same faith, and beliefs, when so much of my life is spent outside of those circles. So that's been something for me, especially, in approaching my faith much more recently, has been, really working on those connections with people, um, because we're meant to love and be loved.
Um, my faith has had some radical changes over the past couple of years. As somebody that like went to school to be a minister, was a minister for like 4.5 years, and then has not been for longer than that now. Um, it's definitely been some changes. I think at its biggest, faith is who you are, like, and it is what you do. It's can to like, I think that can even be a bigger thing than like what you believe. Although, of course, like what you believe is an important part of who you are and what you do. But I feel like for a lot of people, like faith is the I go to this place and I do this thing there. And like faith is what you do when you cross that threshold, and faith is like not, and faith is no longer what you do once you leave. And so like there's the Shanine, you'll recognize, or you'll appreciate this reference. It's the when in the office they go to Jim and Pam's christening for Cece, and Toby can't go into the building, and that idea that faith is the building to him, and like he can't cross in, and so that's something that I think is so like for a lot of people that's where their faith is. It's that literal threshold, but it's not who you are outside of the building, and so I think that's always kind of been my approach. And like things have changed. Like online communities, of course, have pretty radically changed. Like the people that I interact with my faith. Shout out to Checkpoint. Um, but I think that's like a big part of it. And it's like how can you like what are the little things? Maybe that's another way to say it. That kind of ties in with Dex's whole thing. And I think that's a big challenge that people have and that we have to figure out is it's faith. Mother Teresa has the like small acts with great love quote, and I feel like that is like such a big part of faith, and part of what I like about Dex is very much like we'll talk more about the religion in the novel later, but Dex is very much like small acts matter, great love, great intentionality in the little things.
I think for me, I think the way I've approached my faith has fluctuated a lot throughout the years as well. Just coming with exposure to a lot of denominations and things like that too, I think. Um, but I think often it came from a place of like you know that your faith is in a good place when you're doing all the right things, when you're like going to church every week, when you're reading your Bible every day. Like you're really, really good if you're doing like an in-depth Bible study. Um, and you know, the kind of the harder you hold on to your faith, the better it is. And I think I don't know, I related to Dex a lot in the struggles that they were going through in just feeling overwhelmed with all of life and just lost and directionless. And I think where you're at in your faith can affect how you feel about those things, but also those things can affect how you're feeling about your faith as well. And it gets a little complicated and hard. Um, but I think this this moment that I just read kind of crystallized in my mind that like it's okay if I'm not doing all the things. Like the faith hasn't changed and it hasn't gone anywhere, and it's always going to be that soft place to land and come back to, um, that offering of a cup of tea, um, and that it's there anytime. um, and I think that's so much more like welcoming and loving than believing that you have to be doing all the right things. Um, just realizing that it's not about what you're doing. Like those things can help and those things can be important, but it's not what it's about. Um, yeah. Um, do you have any more thoughts on how Dex and the people of their world approach faith?
From a
It's a
world
very
building perspective, man, I love me a very loosely defined pantheon.
yeah.
Like I love like the mystery of like how did we get here? What is going on? Like I love that from like a world building standpoint.
Just here.
From a from a me wanting to know more about this world standpoint, I really wish we had more information on all of that. Uh,
Sorry,
but
Cameron, we're just here.
yeah, I really liked this look at faith, and it's very telling where Dex is, like both in terms of like their journey, but also in terms of like what I guess what deity they follow. I guess that's the right term for it. And I think that that's very interesting. It's very like like they essentially have like a god of cozy,
Yeah.
and it's like it's like this look at support and community, and yeah, it's such a fun like take on like what would and again we
Cozy, peaceful things. And even if you follow one specific deity within this, pantheon, kind of like as I mentioned earlier, it's fine to shift from following one to following another because they all combined together represent a bigger picture. And that's what these people sort of believe in, is this bigger picture thing represented by smaller puzzle pieces. And so there's smaller puzzle pieces that you can choose to be a part of if you want. Um, kind of like I don't know why this example just popped into my head, but kind of like a pyramid scheme for good and a good pyramid scheme. Not a bad one like they all are. It's a good pyramid scheme, but it's not actually a pyramid scheme. It's a puzzle. It's a good puzzle made up of puzzle pieces, I guess is a better example. Um, and it's a great sort of touch point for, I guess, within this world, it would be a great touch point for a lot of people growing up to learn that sort of system. But it's also sort of undefined enough that we as readers can go in without a lot of world building and be like, yeah, okay, I can apply my own interpretation to this explanation of, the god of cozy, the god of fortune or whatever. I forget their names. The sun bear. I could go digging for the names, but that would take me like 10 minutes. Um, and the fact that it's all sort of focused on harmony is so delightful. And there's, as Cameron said, there's no war, there's no fighting. It's like this focus on maintaining peace and harmony, which is refreshing.
Yeah. I think what you said about harmony reminds me of the quote, the strength to do both. And of course, I don't have my novel in front of me because I borrowed it from the library. So I don't remember what the longer quote is, but of the both that are being referred to, I think one of them is like unraveling the mysteries of the world, and I want to say the other thing is constructs. And I think it's just like how making and having an impact is important. It's also important to seek understanding, but it's important to do both things. So the more understanding you have, the better things you can make and do. And the more that you make and do, the more that you're discovering and can understand. But also that in order to find the strength to do both things, you need rest. And just how that's like a key part of their beliefs is rest is important, and rest is what gives you strength to do the things. Which, sounds familiar, but also sounds like something that we choose to ignore quite often. Um, how would you say, if it is, that rest is a part of your life and your schedules?
My life is nothing but rest right now. as many people know, I'm job hunting, which means I am sitting at home on a computer, scrolling through Indeed and LinkedIn constantly.
I don't think that's necessarily restful,
Yeah.
but
Well, it does mean that I'm waking up at like 9:45 every morning going, I did not mean to sleep in that long, but it's, um but it is a lot less chaotic than it was even just 2 months ago where I was getting no sleep except for maybe like 3 hours tops. Um but on a regular schedule, I like to set Sundays aside. If I have to work on the weekends, I try to set Sundays aside for like a me day almost, um, to get rest. And then I really tried to build it in the evenings in terms of like yes, sleep is rest, but also doing something for yourself is rest. So I like to build in time before going to bed to like read a book or like knit or crochet or whatever, um, which is something that I really try to do. That is something for me rather than just working 24/7.
Man, I'm bad at rest. I know this has been a long time. Listeners, watchers will know. Like, I am very much the like gotta be doing something person. Like, I'm so bad at being in my own head. I'm so bad at like if I just need to sit like meditating, like all of that is like miserable for me. And so I feel like for me, like I'm very lucky in that like the hobbies that I do, I feel recharged afterwards. Like I'm an extrovert, so like rest for me is like spending time with friends, like going and doing stuff. Like that helps me feel rested versus people that leave those things socially drained. Like I'm the person that like man that's awesome. Like and then even stuff like with hobbies like video games, it's like to me that's relaxing, that's recharging, and like I could do that a lot. And it's I feel like I've always struggled with the idea of rest being this like reading, meditating, sitting and you're like sitting with yourself. And it's for me it's always been that community and social side of rest that I've loved, that I've come out like feeling recharged afterwards. And it can definitely be difficult. Like there's definitely been lots of times in my life where like the struggle for me was that I felt like I wasn't getting that, or I was only getting like one part of it. So like as an example, like when I had first moved to Connecticut, it's like I was seeing a lot of people, but I was seeing them because I was a minister at a church. I was not seeing like my friends. I was not seeing family. It was like, and that was a struggle as I like first got up there and had to like establish my circle and make a group of like adult friends for the first time in my life. Like, and so that's something that like that wore on me because I felt like I wasn't getting that outlet. And then thankfully I'm that person that like I can have like a busy schedule and it can be really fun for me and I can feel rested after doing a whole bunch with others. So
yeah, I'm really good at being busy and really bad at resting. Um, Definitely been something that I've been working on a lot and that my therapists are do a lot of finger wagging about. Um, um, yeah, kind of like Emma was talking about how rest is not just like sleeping, it's about doing things for yourself that you enjoy. And that's been something that I've been trying to focus on is not just like having a day at work and then coming home and just like scrolling on my phone all night, like doing something that I actually enjoy actually like makes me feel happy and things like that. Um, yeah, that's what I've been trying to do lately. Still don't know if I'm that good at it, but we're working on it. Um, are there any other themes or anything else that stood out to you from the book?
I do have one more quote, um, and that is it's Mosscap talking to Dex, and Mosscap says, "If you understand that robots' lack of purpose, our refusal of your purpose, is the crowning mark of our intellectual maturity, why do you put so much energy in seeking the opposite?" And I love that as like a thesis statement for Dex's conflict. Like Dex's like conflict is like they have to have purpose and they can't find what that is. And I feel like obviously for a lot of people that's very easy to identify with. But like I love that that is so, like I love the juxtaposition of having it again be the robot that's like, why can't you just live? Like why does it have to be your profession, even if it's something you enjoy, like Dex enjoys being a tea monk? Like, why does it have to be your profession or your calendar that defines you? Can't just being you be enough? Good job, Dex. A plus robot.
Solid robot. Um, I think for me, the biggest thing is just being open minded. Like, and being willing to accept when things don't feel right and figuring out why. Taking some time to figure out why something doesn't feel right.
Yeah. All right. Um, I kind of mentioned before that I think I read this book at just the exact right time for me. It was just all of the things that I needed to be hearing. Um, do you have an experience like that with a book?
If you don't mind being vulnerable, I would like to hear why.
um, I think, yeah, a lot of the things that I mentioned already, just from like the dedication for anybody who could use a break. Um, I think I just related to Dex just in every possible way. Um, feeling like escaping to the wilds would maybe it would solve everything. Um,
Yep,
maybe we
it
should
works for
just
Ron
try.
Swanson.
Yeah.
It can't hurt to try. Um,
And if it doesn't, at least you got a nice little nature vacation out of it, you know?
you know,
You gotta go touch some grass for a while.
yeah. Um, yeah, I think just being at a place in my life where I'm not necessarily happy with where I'm at with a lot of things and kind of am striving for that purpose and to feel fulfilled in life. And um, part of what Dex discovered was just you know what? It's beautiful to live, and it's okay to just be. And um yeah, also their relationship with faith, and that it's just it's a welcoming, cozy place. um, I don't think I've necessarily viewed faith as being cozy before, but I liked it.
Need more bean bags. Less pews, more
All
bean bags.
yep,
Hmm, hmm.
and a little tea station
Yeah.
just for you.
For me, as somebody who's not like an avid like fiction reader, not really, to answer the question. That's like I've definitely read books like faith related books that have hit me at like with the time, but usually that was me like seeking them out. And so there was some like intentionality there of like I am struggling with this idea as a minister, and so I'm going to go find a book. Oh, look, here's a book. And there's definitely some like stuff there of like, oh, the book about this thing just happened to come out as I was feeling this. There's definitely like that side of it. But from an actual like novel perspective, I don't feel like that's really been the case. But from a video game perspective, definitely. So I think I've talked about this before, but Persona 4 Golden was a big game for me right after I graduated college. And like without going too much into the 100-hour story, um, the main crux of it is like you are this kid that gets sent to live with like a family member in a small town, and the major themes of the game center on the idea of like people's like warped perceptions of those around them. And so it was something that like kind of hit me as I was by no means coming back to a small town, but like I was leaving the city where I went to the college to come back to my suburb where I feel like I'm kind of stuck as I'm job searching, and I'm dealing with the what is my perception for my life for the next like part of my life going to be, and kind of dealing with that like some of my friends are here from high school, but like not everyone. Like, what does like life look like as I'm trying to find a job? And so that story like really hit me at that time. And it was very much the like, this is such a good like post graduation, I need to find myself kind of thing. That like, yeah, like so that was definitely the thing that came to mind for me.
Yeah, I think for me, book wise, there isn't like any specific moment in time where a book came to me at the right time, so much as like bigger picture, like a lot of the books that I loved and grew up with are the reason I point to for where I am today. Um, in terms of like series like Aragon and Percy Jackson and others along those veins are you know I would say the reason that I have such a deep love for fantasy and science fiction and good storytelling that at its core is was created for the story itself rather than to feed off a trend, if you will. And a lot of those series that I grew up with and have a special attachment to from my childhood definitely like sort of, you know, created me in a sense of who I am today as an adult. Now I'm also, Cameron, I'm going to bounce off of you because you gave me the thought in terms of video games. Because I do feel like it's kind of related. Um, I have talked about it a lot, and I will continue to talk about it. Horizon Zero Dawn I would definitely say came to me at exactly the right point in time. Right when I was first getting into video games, I knew nothing about it. Had like 3 different people tell me I would really like it, and I was so hesitant about video games. And I was like, all right, 3 different people are recommending this game to me, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And it was such a moment of like uh, like empowerment playing the game when I didn't have or feel a lot of empowerment. And it was a very special moment for me that I definitely attached to that game and the things that, happen in that game. And just, I haven't had that kind of experience with a book specifically because a lot of the books that I hold near and dear are like books from growing up and childhood, um, and up through high school that have, made me who I am today. But I can point to Horizon Zero Dawn as a game and say, like, this game showing up, this game showed up in my life exactly when I needed it to show up. Um, just in terms of story, game design, character, everything. So it was, I like got an hour in and was pretty much crying in the first hour of that game because 3 people recommended it to me saying it really reminds me of you. And then I played it and was like, the timing of this game could not be better for my life. So, yeah.
Thanks for sharing, everybody. Any final thoughts on A Psalm for the Wild Built?
Great book, highly recommend. Not what you would expect, but in a good way, and read it.
Highly recommend. Also recommend A Prayer for the Crown Shy, which is the sequel. It's, I don't know, it's less of a sequel and more of just like a part 2, if that makes sense, of like, it could very easily have just been the second half of the book like that. It's like, that's kind of like, it literally picks up right after the first one ends. And so like if they were in one cover, you would just see it as like the second half of the book. And so I very much recommend that one as well. It gets into a little bit of like the consequences isn't the right word, but it gets a little bit into like what happens now that Mosscap is here. And it's very interesting. I very much enjoyed what it does. I listened to the audiobooks pretty much back to back. And so it's definitely hard to differentiate what's in one versus the other, which is why I say go read/listen to them both.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add. It was great, and I also highly recommend it. Like I said, it was one of my top reads of 2023. So, all right. And speaking of top reads of 2023, our book for February will be one of Cameron and mine's favorite books of 2023 as well. By the incomparable V. Schwab, we'll be reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue.
To clarify, the reason Shanine said that is I am the only person who have not read this book yet. Yeah. So I am going to have my life changed apparently by this book.
Yeah. So I will say, with where I'm at right now, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is my favorite book of all time. And I've talked about it before. I'll talk about it when we actually do book club. But like, I was doing like an unofficial like marathon of Schwab's work because my library has all the audiobooks except for the Fragile Threads of Power. Please, library, I need it. I need you to get me this. And so this was one that I was skipping over. It didn't seem that interesting to me from like a synopsis standpoint. And I was like, it's fine. I'll skip it. And then Shanine, you very highly recommended it, and I was like, okay, I'll try it. And like, sure enough, like I said, I'm pretty confident this is my favorite work of fiction that I've ever read, and or audiobooked, counts as reading. And so this is one of the few books that I have finished, and I've had to stop myself from just restarting the audiobook. And so this is literally me using this as an excuse to listen to this book again. So.
I love it. I love that I made you love it.
Yes.
We will convert everyone by the end of this.
Yes. Get
But
Schwab
yes,
those book
we'll
deals.
Yep.
Or movie deals. She needs a TV show so bad.
Yeah. So we'll be reading this for our February book club, discussing it on February 29th.
That's the last Thursday of the month. We had not discussed this before, so I put a question mark, but
Yep.
that is the last Thursday. So
It is. So, yes. February 29th.
perfect. 1 month from today, I am super excited.
Cannot wait.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us as we discussed A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. We are First Geek 411 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Join our Discord server or shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. Check out our Redbubble store and watch live on our Twitch and find all our videos over on YouTube. You can find me at Hoot and Howl Tales, TALES, on Instagram and Threads.
You can find me at I am not prepared with an I in the prepared on all platforms.
And you can find me as Humar Whittle on all platforms.
Drink some water.
Read a book.
Find a robot.